Hi guys, welcome to the latest podcast of YarninBlak. Today I've got a really great friend of mine on, Tarina. I'll introduce you to her in a second. But first I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that I'm calling in from. I'm here in Balwyn Q on the land of the Wurundjeri people, and I'd like to pay respect to their elders past and present. But also I'd like to acknowledge the young people that are coming through, because they're going to be our future warriors and leaders, and they're going to take our culture into the future. So my guest on today is Tarina. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. And thank you for the opportunity to be here today, AJ.
Now, awesome. So for people that don't know you, who are you? Where you're from?
Okay, so who am I? So I'd like to acknowledge that I'm on the lands of the Boonwurrung people. So acknowledge the land that I live and work on here. My name's Tarina. I am a very proud Larrakia Tiwi woman with connections to Darwin and also Aranda people of the Northern Territory. I am a member of the Stolen Generations, having grown up on Gunai Kurnai Country down there in Torres. In Gippsland. Yeah. So I am a consultant. I run my own training and consultancy business. So that's who I am.
Oh, cool. So for people that don't know where the Tiwi Islands are, where are the Tiwi Islands?
Oh yes, I'm so sorry. So the Tiwi Islands, so Larrakia, I apologise. Larrakia Country. Larrakia Country are the traditional custodians of Darwin and the surrounding areas. So the Larrakia, that's on my mother and my grandmother's side of the family. And the Tiwi Islands are just north of Darwin. If you go over the beautiful Arafura Sea, you've got the Tiwi Islands, which are Bathurst Island and Melville Island. So, and that's on my grandfather's side of the family.
And it is beautiful country up there, isn't it?
Absolutely beautiful country, absolutely. And the weather is pretty beautiful, most of the year round, except for obviously the wet season in that, November, January, February, etc.
And it's so uncharted. It's still very uncharted. Like, it's kind of, I've done work at the Tiwi College.
Yes.
And going, like, to get there, we had to fly in the little jet, the little plane from the airport to get over. And it's such just walking around the islands is so, it hasn't been tourized, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. And look, the truth is that I've only actually known about my Tiwi Island background since 2015. That was when, because I'm actually a member of the Stolen Generations, I knew I was a Larrakia woman through some information that my adopted parents had provided for me. But it was a real new thing to me when in 2015 I went up to Darwin for the very first time to meet my little brother, Ronald. And I'd also just recently before then connected with my little sister Michelle, who was living on, or it still does live on, Walgarookaba Bindal country, which is Townsville.
Yep.
Yeah, and so for the first time in 2015, the three of us siblings together met and together in Darwin, and it was just only through talking to family, making extended family connections, that I actually, for the very first time, we met some more of our sisters who were talking family, and turns out that our grandfathers were brothers, and we were also Tiwi Island. Yeah, so that's only new information in terms of my story. Yeah.
So I want to ask you, I'm going to take you back in time a little bit, but where did you originally grow up and where did you go to school?
Yeah, so, well, look, I was born in Meanjin, so I was born in Brisbane, and the reason how I came to be born in Brisbane was because my mum was also from the Stolen Generations, as was my grandmother, so there's 3 generations just there, including myself. So I was actually born in Brisbane, but adopted into a white family when I was 8 months of age, and I grew up, as I said, in Traralgon, grew up and was brought up by a non-Aboriginal family, two brothers, one Aboriginal, one not, and the Aboriginal brother was also taken away from his family. He's a Warramungu man from Tennant Creek way, and then I've got an older sister who's also non-Aboriginal. So the people that I was adopted into, two Aboriginal children who were adopted through the church and all that stolen generation stuff, and two of their own children. So predominantly I've grown up in Gippsland from when I was a very young baby until I left Gippsland to work in the Big Smoke when I was 19.
So you got to finish year 12?
No, I did not do year 12. I don't consider myself one of the clever ones, but I did year 11. So I went to Kosciuszko Street Primary School in Traralgon, and then my family moved out to a little place called Tyres, not Lake Tyres, but
Tyres.
Tyres. It's just 14 k's out of Traralgon, and so I went to primary school there, and then went to Traralgon High. After Traralgon High, I went to a TAFE college. I went to Yallourn TAFE because I actually did office and secretarial studies there. And didn't do year 12 though. Went to year 11 and then went to TAFE college. Yes.
Yeah. So you would learn to type.
Yeah, absolutely. I learned to type. I can't tell you how many words a minute back then. I don't think it was that much, to be quite honest, but at least it was, and it was all about, learning about office and administration skills, because the job I actually got after that was 6 months in a real estate agent in Traralgon, but I decided I wanted to spread my wings and do something totally different. Yes.
Yeah. So some people would know and some people wouldn't know, but you also spent time at Victoria Police. So how did you end up becoming a police officer?
Yeah, so to be honest, working for Victoria Police or becoming a police officer wasn't really on my radar at all. But I have a very good friend non-Aboriginal friend, who just her absolute dream was to be a police officer, and we were yarning, she's one of my best friends. We were yarning and she's like, why don't you give that a go? And I'm like, I don't know about that, because initially my dream job, would you believe, was to be a air hostess, as they were called back in those days. That's when I was like 60 kilos, very skinny, all of that. Not so much now, but I wanted to be an air hostess. But the thing was you had to be 21, and that was back in the days when it was like TAA. Maybe some of our younger viewers wouldn't even know.
No, I remember TAA though.
Yeah, but it was TAA, but you had to be 21. So I thought, I don't want to stay in the real estate agent. What else can I do? And my friend, said, why don't you try for the police force? And so I thought, why not? And I actually put in my application and was lucky enough to actually get in. And my friend wasn't that happy with me because I actually ended up getting in a year before she did. So that didn't go down too well, but for certain reasons, she wasn't able to get in. But I joined Victoria Police in 1986. I have the absolute honour of being the first Aboriginal woman to join VicPol. I had a number of Aboriginal men. There were 3 Aboriginal men in the police force in the job when I joined. And it was really good for me to, have them to be able to be in contact with, mentor me, and help me out when I was, needed to call someone to say, hey, So, 2 of those men have passed away, and one of them, is considerably old now. So, but look, I spent 14 years as a police officer in Victoria Police, and I've worked in the country areas like Moe Mole and Traralgon. I worked in Brunswick, Flemington and Moonee Ponds, and a few other areas like licensing, gaming and vice, the community policing squad, which is like the sexual offences and child abuse unit is now, and also I worked in Crime Stoppers as a criminal analyst. So it was a really interesting career.
So what made you then go, okay, I've had enough of the police, I need to go and do something else?
Yeah, look, I was 19 when I joined the job, and I was a very quiet, shy country girl. So I guess you could say, in a lot of ways, I grew up quite fast within the police. I've gone from the country to the city, and I'm like, whoa. But it was just that I had a bit of a calling because I just wanted to do something different. And actually, while I was in VicPol, I actually went to Holmes Glen TAFE actually,
Oh, yeah.
and did a Cert 4 in home and community care. So I always wanted to, work in the health industry, or that's something that I'd always had a bit of a passion for. And so I ended up, doing some part-time work in aged care hostels and nursing homes, just yarn like caring for elderly people and helping them out, and yarning, to be quite honest. A lot of the old people, in those nursing homes and hostels, all they want is someone to yarn to as well. So so I did that. I left Victoria Police in 1999, went overseas and travelled throughout, United Kingdom and Europe, and came back and then worked for VicPol again. But not as a police officer, as in a particular unit within VicPol.
Awesome.
But the reason why I got after that job, that second job in VicPol, was actually working with Aboriginal community liaison officers, police Aboriginal liaison officers, providing advice to the Chief Commissioner on Aboriginal matters across the state, etc., sitting on various steering committees and things like that. So it was all about building the capacity of Victoria Police, so that we could work better together, Aboriginal communities and Victoria Police.
So how long was your second stint?
2 years.
2 years.
So 2 years, and then I moved to Queensland. So I met a beautiful man, who is still my beautiful man. I met my husband. I went on a holiday up there to visit a friend, and walked into a pub and met this, white fella, fair hair, blonde hair, blue-eyed man. And ended up, after 6 months of ginormous phone bills, I thought, what, maybe I might just move up there. And I moved up there, and the rest is history, as they say.
I've got a question that just came to my head. You wanted to be an air host.
Air hostess.
Ended up as a police officer. What uniform would you have rather? What uniform did you like better? The air hostess one or the VicPol one?
No, that's a funny question. Look, to be honest, I did like the police uniform. I like light blue, so that was really nice. Now it's the dark blue, but that's a funny question. I really enjoyed my time in VicPol. Look, I like the fact that you could wear trousers, whereas if I had have been a flight attendant or an air hostess, you would have had to wear skirts all the time, and I'm a bit of a trousers girl.
Okay. Do you remember the colour of the uniform of TAA at the time?
Oh, no.
Oh.
Maybe it was a black skirt and a white shirt, maybe, and a red scarf, maybe. Oh, I don't know.
We might have to do a bit of research on that one.
Actually, maybe I should Google this right now and check.
So now in 2026, you're a consultant. So tell us a little bit about your consultancy business and what got you involved, what got you interested in creating your own consultancy.
Well, look, the thing is that, having worked in VicPol, then gone to Queensland and worked in child protection, and then Queensland Health, and then coming back and working, at various government organisations. Well, I did do training. When I worked in the Department of Justice, I was the Koori Cultural Awareness Trainer. So I did a lot of training across the department with various different business units. And then I went to, courts and trusts in place, and the Judicial College of Victoria. But the reason why I got involved in my own business, I guess I'd done, 30 odd years, 32 years or thereabouts, in government. And I just wanted to, I wanted to be my own boss. But the thing is that I have a passion, like a lot of us, I have a passion to want to educate people, or to share our history, because we have a shared history in this country. It's not just non-Aboriginal history, non-First Nations history. We've got Black history, and it's really important that that's shared. And so I wanted to sort of spread my wings to all different organisations, not just government organisations. So I'm very lucky that, I do a lot more training than consulting, but I have done consulting. There's no concern with me doing consulting, but it's just been that there has been a need in various organisations for their employees to gain knowledge of our First Peoples, of, not only Victoria, but of this country. And it's something that I'm really passionate about, sharing the knowledge that I have, sharing my lived experience as well.
Yep. So what's the name of your business?
Yes, so my business is Tarina Fanning Aboriginal Consultancy and Training Services.
Yeah.
Well, not the and, it's Tarina Fanning Aboriginal Consultancy Training Service. And, when I was developing my business, I thought, actually, I like that. Little acronym, TFACS, because the thing is that, I sort of looked at it and thought, well, maybe if they want to know the facts, they can ask Tarina. And so hence TFACS.
I like that.
I don't know everything, but obviously I know a lot. But it's TFACS, is for short. Yeah.
Yeah. So I know you do a lot of cultural awareness training, like myself, but what are some of the things that you're surprised that people don't know?
Wow. They don't know the history of this country. In fact, I did a training session today with, a group, and, not knowing that Aboriginal people weren't citizens of Australia until 1967, not known that the Constitution of 1901 wasn't even inclusive of us, that, that essentially we didn't really exist on paper. We were referred to as natives, all of that sort of stuff. So a lot of people don't know the true history. They don't know, about the referendum of 1967. They don't know who Uncle William Cooper is. They don't know, that we had pathfinders within our culture that really paved the way for us. Or, like with Uncle William Cooper, he not only stood up for the rights of mob, but he actually stood up for the rights of European Jews, and and led a protest march, that sort of thing. I mean, I'm so surprised, there's, to be honest, with the groups that, I facilitate, there might maybe 10%, sometimes even less, I guess, don't know a lot. And the other thing is that some of the training sessions that you do, a lot of the people may have immigrated to Australia, so they didn't know anything. Like today, there was a session, there was one woman who was from England. She'd only been here 8 weeks. So today she got,
Aboriginal History 101.
Yeah, Aboriginal History 101. And, so learning about history, learning about things like the stolen generation, because, you've heard it before. It's like, the stolen generations, that was years ago. Why are they talking about it now? But, they get to hear stories from people with that lived experience. I'm like, hi, I'm from the stolen generations. They're like, but lots of things.
And I kind of agree with you. That's the twist in my training as well, that I talk about stolen generations as if it was in the past, and then I kind of show people how recent in history stuff is, and then I share my story, but I do it in a way that they don't know it's my story to start off with until I go, and that's my story. And they go, holy shit, that recent.
Yeah.
And I'm going, yes, because I think it's that twist that people need to actually understand that. So where does transgenerational trauma come from? It doesn't just come from colonization.
Right.
It comes from the fact that like both of us are part of the stolen generations ourselves.
Yes.
we're comfortable in sharing our story, but that is a shock to some of our participants because they're thinking our grandparents,
Yes. Or our great grandparents. Yeah.
not us
Not
as
us.
us in 2026,
Yes.
that our stories show definitely aspects of stolen generation, but we need to actually kind of slap them in the face with it for them to actually recognize it without actually slapping anyone, because we don't slap anyone. We don't. Apparently there's a rule you can't slap participants in trainings. Did you know
No,
that?
I mean, you wish you can sometimes. It's like, are you for real? Are you? Yeah, but no. And look, the thing is that, when I approach my training, and you will know this and many others, as well, who we're all facilitators and trainers, creating that environment of cultural safety so that they can actually ask whatever questions they want. And there's no such thing as a silly, stupid, dumb or offensive question, because, at the end of the day, if that's not something they've actually learned, they're not going to know. So, and if they're going to be, they're going to be working with our people, they're going to be working with our mob, it's really important that they do understand the impacts of intergenerational trauma, that colonisation, legislation, the stolen generations, and how that does impact, intergenerationally, with our young people, because our young people hear the sad stories of their parents or their grandparents, and and the other thing is like a lot of people, like even today, I talk to them about cultural bias and things like racism and discrimination, and when you share with them your lived experience of racism and discrimination, they're like, I mean, one of the participants today, just said, "Oh, that's," it was just like, that's so wrong, but unfortunately,
but they don't know what they don't know as well.
No,
that's the thing that I like what you just said then, because I think I train very similar, going, I want them to ask questions. I want them to make themselves vulnerable, and don't be scared to ask the question, because I always go, a true ally is somebody that will stop and ask questions.
Yeah.
They won't just presume and assume. They're going to stop and ask. And we're quite generous as Aboriginal people sharing our culture if we know that it's being asked for their growth and learning, not just to steal our knowledge away from us, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. And look, the truth is that, by us, I think it is not always easy as a facilitator to share our lived experience and share our story, but it's something, I feel, for me, it's something that I have to do for them to actually fully understand, the journey that we've actually been on. And, and sometimes you say, look, put yourself in my place. Like when I talked about the stolen generations, some of the people in the room were just aghast at the fact that I said, our children, we'd send them to school, but when we go to pick them up, they wouldn't be there, they wouldn't be there for us to pick them up or what have you. And they're like, what? And, the fact that some of our elders, that would live, in humpies and along the riverbank, they didn't live in houses. They lived on the river. They lived, so they lived in such substandard, living conditions. They're like, but no. And I'm like, absolutely.
And I think you're right. And what people don't get is they're the elders in our community right now.
Yeah, absolutely. They are our elders. I work with quite a number of them, absolutely, who lived on the banks of the river. Yeah.
So my question is to you as well, to help me answer this, is like, I always say to organisations that say they work in a trauma-informed way, because they always throw that language around, is that but if you don't understand where the trauma is actually coming from, and you don't understand that we're talking about the elders in our community right this minute, how can you provide trauma-informed care if you don't actually know where the trauma is coming from?
No, absolutely. That you don't acknowledge that. Yeah, absolutely. It's really important. And if they don't know, they run the risk of re-traumatizing people, because they're not approaching things in a trauma-informed practice or care way. Yeah, they need to know that trauma. And it's like, when you're working with people, because obviously, with my background, I've got a lot of background in the justice space. I work with, people within the youth justice, within the prisons, and, it's really important. I quite often say to them, you actually need to look beyond the offence and look at the offending behavior and what's actually behind that. Yeah. And, sometimes there is quite, well, not sometimes, quite a bit, there is trauma. Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think even at school, I think some people, I spend a lot of time talking to clinicians because I work with kids that have had suicide attempts or I've got suicide ideation. So trying to explain to teachers and even counsellors the difference between bad behaviour and trauma behaviour.
A trauma response, yeah, absolutely. Those self-harm, those sash behaviours, quite often it's it's a trauma response to their hurt and their pain. Yeah.
So I've got a question for you, and that is, what makes you feel culturally safe about walking into a health service or an organisation?
Yeah, well, what makes me feel safe is, that environment that's created where if I see, and look, I do know that I don't go into an Aboriginal health service. I've got a local one here that I go to. And look, to be quite honest, that doesn't have any visibility of Aboriginal flags, an acknowledgement of country or what have you. But look, what generally, what does make me feel safe going to a health organisation is the presence of an acknowledgement of country, the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander flags, the health messages. Do you identify as Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander? If so, see our reception, having artwork and all that sort of stuff. And that's not, ticking a box within that health service. It's actually about, ensuring that, if we walk through the door, we can recognise aspects of our culture that then makes us think, like when I worked in the mental health space up in Mackay, I worked at Queensland Health, and I worked as a mental health worker, although, as you know, social and emotional well-being is the terminology that we like to use. But I looked around the reception room because we was quite a reasonable population of Aboriginal, Torres Strait Islander and Australian South Sea Islander people that access that service. But it was, for want of a better word, and no disrespect to our beautiful non-Aboriginal and non-Torres Strait Islander people out there, but the waiting room is whitewashed. It was just no evidence of culture there. So, I took it upon myself to, have the flags, have brochures, have everything so that when our mob did walk in there, they could see that it was inclusive of their culture. Yeah. So, But cultural safety to me is seeing that, my culture is present in that organisation. Yeah.
Now, another word that gets thrown around a lot is reconciliation. Yeah. What does reconciliation mean to you?
Boy, look out, coming out with the big guns. Well, look, reconciliation to me is, about Aboriginal, about First Nations people. It's about mob and non-mob actually sitting down, yarning, talking together, walking side by side. I said this to the group today. It's not about walking in front. It's not walking beside. It's actually about, not walking in front, not walking behind, but walking beside us. But it's also about, learning about the history, learning, about our people. It's about having that shared understanding and valuing who we are as First Nations people. To be honest, I think we've still got a long way to go in the reconciliation movement. What I mean by that is that Reconciliation Australia do amazing things, but we still need, like, for example, this year, the reconciliation theme was all in for reconciliation. It's not about Aboriginal people, First Nations people doing everything. It's about non-Indigenous people stepping in and playing a role and an active part in that reconciliation as well. Yeah, but it's about listening, learning, being culturally curious. Yeah. But I think it's really important that we have really, really strong, strong allies as well.
Yeah.
We need those allies to, we need people to call things out. If they see and hear things, where people are being, ignorant, racist or what have you, having those allies call people out and say, hang on a minute, that's not acceptable. Yeah.
So, and I think I like that. And I think too, the truth is that we want allies that are going to do that while we're not in the room with them as well.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah, there was a great paper that was written by a lady from the University of Wollongong, and it was actually, she was talking about, gone blank now.
Was it Summer Finlay?
Yes, Summer Finlay. Yeah, absolutely. And Summer spoke about tokenism, allies, and what's the other third word? Accomplices.
Yeah.
And it's a really, really great read. And I quite often refer to Summer's experience because, people think, I'm doing lots and lots of stuff, for reconciliation. We've put on a morning tea. You've done it once, for the whole year, for the whole 12 months. It's got to be ongoing, January, February, March, April, do something, not just tick the box. And so that's tokenistic. But then you've got the allies, that will be there and will stand beside us. But then you've got the accomplices that are, ready and willing to get locked up with us.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And we need them. We need them. And I think that's why I love hearing you talk about how you guide the participants through the workshop, because in the end you want them, like we can only tell them what we know within the workshop. We need them to actually walk away and be able to do something with what we've taught them.
Absolutely. We want them to have their ongoing learning. We want them to continue with their learning journey. Absolutely.
Yeah. So sharing your story, and I know for me it can be hard at times and it can be draining. What do you do for self-care for yourself?
So I love artwork. So I've this is that's my business logo, but I don't really put it out there. I think I might have said this to you another time, but I sort of not the word suffer, but imposter syndrome, sometimes comes to mind for me in lots of, aspects of my life. But I know I'm strong in, who I am. I know I'm strong in in culture. I know I'm strong in knowledge. But, in terms of my artwork, I sort of think, I don't know if I'm as good as, this Aboriginal artist. But the bottom line is that my artwork, is my artwork. It's my story. It's, that sort of stuff. So for me, like after a full day of doing training sessions, I like to, get involved in my art, or I might just watch a bit of telly. But artwork for me is something that I really like to do. So, so that's a bit of my downtime. And recently my husband bought me a bike. So actually, I've been going on a bit of a bike ride, when
awesome.
we can. Is to do that as well. But spending time with my family, spending time with my husband, when we, can get some time and, the funds together, flying up to Mackay to see our son, his fiance, and our beautiful 3 grandchildren, is something as well. So,
So I've got another question for you. What's it like being a grandmother?
I love it. I mean, it's he is my stepson, but you know what it's like in culture. At the end of the day, he's my son. He's my husband's son, but actually he's actually adopted. So he's a Korean background. So, but I've been, in his life since he was 14. But to be honest, being a nanny, so we're Nanny and Poppy, is just the best thing. There's nothing better than when we fly up to Mackay and they pick us up from the airport and, they come running up to us, Nanny Poppy, Nanny Poppy. Yeah, so it's just beautiful. And whilst they aren't of Aboriginal, background, they very much embrace Nanny's background. They just love learning about Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. So, and they proudly tell people, my nanny's Aboriginal. So it's really beautiful.
Yeah. Hey, I'm just watching the time. I know we need to keep going, but I've got a couple of final questions for you, and that is, do you have any role models, Aboriginal role models that you look up to?
Oh, well, yes, I do. I look at people like Auntie Marge Tucker. I look at Auntie Joy Murphy. Auntie Joy was, the Aboriginal mother that I never really got to have because I never sadly got to meet my Aboriginal mother. But I look at, other people like, Auntie Lawitcha O'Donoghue, Auntie Di Kerr, I used to do, quite a little bit with her when we were when I worked at the Department of Justice. You've put me completely on the spot. Who else? I didn't get to know my own mother, but I'm absolutely certain she would have been a beautiful role model for me as well. People like, Auntie Yvonne Goolagong Cawley, yeah, so many. A beautiful lady that I work with, Auntie Marlene. She's a woman. She's a Wiradjuri woman that I work with in the health space in one of the other little jobs I do. And she's like still in her 80s and still working, still educating. A professor, 6 or 7 degrees. Yeah, so there's quite a number of pathfinders and role models that I've looked towards in my life. Yeah.
And I love that saying you've used it a couple of times, pathfinders.
Oh, okay.
I love that. I love that.
Look, to be honest, you just put me right on the spot. I've never actually been sort of asked that directly, but there's just so many First Nations women out there that have actually done so much. I look at, Rose Coombs. I look at Sister Rose, who's become the first judge in the county court. She's a role model. Like, she was the first Aboriginal magistrate here in Victoria. And then you've got Abigail. And look, just there's so many of our women and our men, of course, but there's just so many that have really paved the way, and that's why I call them pathfinders, because without them a lot of us wouldn't be where we are today because they've done the hard yards. Now
look, my final question is, what would you like people to walk away with from our yarn this afternoon?
Just to know that shut up, look out. I just want them to know that I'm a very proud Larrakia Tiwi woman. I want people to know that we just need to keep on, being who we are, being our authentic self, being deadly, really making a difference, in the lives of, people, and continuing to educate. Be strong, be resilient. Don't ever forget who you are, where you come from, and be proud to be black, BLAK. Be proud to be black. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Now, I want to say thank you for joining me on the podcast today. You know how much I love the work that you do.
Thank you.
So I want to say thank you. And guys, I will see you at the next podcast. And we thank Tarina for joining us today. So thanks, Tarina.
Thank you. Thank you so very much.